Hello everyone and welcome to the pitskill.io Porsche Cup sponsored by SimQuips. And tonight we bring you round 11 of our series. And this week we're at a very wet looking Valencia at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo. And as we follow our championship leader, Sam McCarthy, well, this was our championship leader. Let's take a look and see how that looks right now. As actually it is Chris Wright who holds the lead in this championship. Now we are taking the drop rounds into consideration, with Sam McCarthy trailing by just 9 points. They're both ahead of Reese Tattersall, driver on a charge after missing out a few rounds earlier in the season, is now clawing his way back up towards the top. And Johan Leffit, who has been also having a very strong season. The points there may be deceptive, with 2 rounds left to go and a number of drop rounds still to be taken into consideration. Johan Leffit very much in consideration for this championship. As behind those top 4 we have got Bernhard Bendel, Christian Fegi, Ryan Ware, Balazs Fahir, Simon Eklund, Steve Goosens, Marco Lorenzon, Oliver Seitz, Joe Wilson, Wojtek Zwoba and Florent de Moor. As we check in with our drivers. Currently qualifying, our championship leader, Chris Wright. Currently set P5 on the provisional grid for tonight's race. Some 1.7 seconds off of the absolute pace in this session, and well, still 1 second off the pace of his championship rival Sam McCarthy. But it is Johan Leffit who again leading the way, but just 1/2 of a tenth off of him is Reese Tattersall, who's currently sat in the pit lanes. And we have Bernhard Bendel sitting in P3. As the track is wet and the conditions seem to be staying relatively stable with the rain. Only a few drivers actually looking like they're improving, and Bernhard Bendel goes slithering off the track. As Busso currently sitting on a 140.2, some 7/10 off of our provisional pole sitter, is finding pace around this lap. So they keep it just within track limits, although quite slippery out there on that curbing. So losing a little bit of lap time, and it's going to be up to the drivers to work out where the grip is. Will be the first time for many of these drivers driving this track this week, and I imagine not much time for practice in these cars, so I think each of them really going to be struggling with the conditions and the circuit. As Johan Leffit finding his comfort level with the track surface out there, and is on a real charger of a lap now. Could be even the first of our drivers to get into the 138s before this session is over. Such is the pace of Johan Leffit at the moment. Using absolutely every millimetre of the track available. With just the final corner left to navigate. Certainly more pace available if he can just extract it. He's certainly shown that he's got what it takes to get into the 38. It's just 2/10 off of it now, and now some 3/10 clear of Reese Tattersall, who himself is on a real flying lap as the 104 car ahead just returns to the pit lane. Shouldn't be getting in the way of Tattersall here, and Tattersall sideways. That's not going to be the fastest route around the corner by any stretch of the imagination. As we come down towards Adrian Campos, just the final bend to go. Tattersall needs to find 3/10. A good exit and a good run down towards the start-finish line. As he crosses the line, and he's the first driver to crack that 1:39 boundary with a 1:38.955, puts him in provisional pole position. As what looks like that is Lorenz on ahead, going exceptionally sideways. As Steve Goosens in the Amazing Goose Car wants to cross the line. It's going to be a good improvement here for Goosens. Although, unfortunately, I think that may have been an invalidated lap for Goosens, as it does not improve their time as they cross the line and slides right off the circuit at the first corner. So, going to have to get themselves pointing the right way and get off again, because not much time remaining in this qualifying session. As Svoboda, again, many drivers getting themselves all out of sorts through turn 5. There's Svoboda, keeping it tidy. Just a sector to go. This could be a good opportunity for Svoboda to jump themselves up a number of positions. Just half a second separating them from P8. And looking like they have plenty of time in hand at the moment. So they cross the line. That's not the line. That's the line. Jumps us up to P7 ahead of our championship leader, Chris Wright. If Wright wants any chance of improving their position, they're going to have to get out on circuit right this second. There's Leffy sending it sideways. Through the second last corner. Oh, and has to back out of it, so going to have just one final attempt at a flying lap. And no, Leffy absolutely bottles it out of the final corner. There's not going to be an opportunity to improve there, as looks like that was Joe Wilson. No, it wasn't Wilson, sorry. Samuel. It seems like everyone is going off at the final corner now. Maybe just overdoing it, trying to find that extra bit of pace, getting excited at the prospect of finding a little bit more time through the final corner. And, or perhaps just the conditions worsening out there. As Reese Tattersall on a real flying lap here. Going to take chunks out of the competition. They come to cross the line. It is a 1:38.752. Allow them to take us around the first part of this circuit. No real sign of a drying line at the moment, so track conditions not improving much over the session, so it's just the drivers getting more confident with the car, with the conditions. There's a little bit of traffic up ahead for Tattersall. Settle keeping it tidy, easing in the throttle. At the moment they've got pole position all wrapped up, but this is looking like a even better lap for here from Tattersall. Goes deep into the final corners, not going to be the best of exits, and in the end not going to be as much of an improvement as it could have been, but Rhys Tattersall crossing the line for a 1:38.5 is the fastest lap of our session. It's just our final few drivers completing their final flying laps. I believe the final driver to complete their lap will be Steve Goosens. Very close to their previous best. And needs to find 8/10 if they're going to jump up over Parry. So looks like Goosens just going to have to settle for P11 in this race. But well, looking at the conditions, this race could be absolutely anyone's. But please bear with us, and we'll be back in just a few short moments for tonight's race. Welcome back. We have just a few short moments before our race gets underway. We just have time to go through our starting grid for tonight's race. On pole position, we have got Rhys Tattersall. Alongside him is Johan Leffe. We've got Van Thielen and Busso, Bernhard Bendel and Sam McCarthy, Svoboda and Wilson, Wright and Parry, Goosens and Lorenzon, Sanyao and Demore, Zasinski and Ketchel-Meyer. As our drivers start to pull away on the formation lap. We are but a few short minutes away from the start of tonight's race. It's going to be all important how these drivers get into turn one. It's a sweeping corner is Aspar here at Valencia, and it's going to be interesting to see how much drivers want to commit, especially those on the inside. As A lot to be gained by pushing as much as you can into that corner, but is going to carry the risk of either washing out wide or collecting the driver on your outside. So everyone's going to need to be very, very careful. There's a lot on the line in this championship. As our drivers get themselves around the circuit. Trying to get the heat into the tyres is going to be a challenge. Your drivers just dragging the brakes, trying to get heat into the brakes, get the heat then into the tyres. As tyre pressure is ever so important with these wet tyres. As we get ready for the green flag is Reese Tattersall leading Johan Leffy. And we are racing in Valencia. And it's a good start from Leffy, who's right alongside Tattersall. Got an extremely good launch as Van Thuylen looks up the inside. A little bit of a nudge there between Busso and Van Thuylen, but it's Reese Tattersall who's got the good start and managed to keep ahead of Johan Leffy. As Sam McCarthy looking around the outside of Bernhard Bendel. Turn to the inside for the next corner as they come through. There's Sam McCarthy ahead of Bernhard Bendel and Joe Wilson. At the head of the field, it's still Reese Tattersall leading the way. As Johan Leffy really confident with the grip there. Heavy braking on the inside, nearly gets himself alongside Reese Tattersall. As Van Thuylen drifting around in the background. Managing to carry the speed though, and is keeping with this lead pair. As is Busso, but behind them a little bit of a gap merging back to McCarthy. The battle at the front, extremely close, as Van Thuylen looking for a run on the back of Leffy. As incident for Chris Wright goes deep on the brakes and slides off the circuit into the gravel. That is not going to do wonders for his championship, especially as he spins it out on the painted surface. And that puts him now 7 seconds off the back of the final car. As Johan Leffy continues to chase Reese Tattersall. Just slightly getting a lead over Van Thuylen and Busso behind. Oh, as we see a little jump of the car of Tattersall. Hopefully that is not a sign of ill portent, as we did see Tattersall with connection issues earlier in the season. It did require him to drop out of the race at Zandvoort. So we'll keep everything crossed that we're not seeing a repeat of the same here at Valencia. Or as we've got a spin for Van Thuylen. Gets himself back on the circuit. Just a little eager on the throttle through the final corner. Kicks the rear of the car around and out into the gravel. There's Bernhard Bendel on the attack against Sam McCarthy after losing out that position earlier in the race. You see drivers opting for different lines through the two corners of 5 and 6, sorry, 7 and 8, and trying to get different lines on that run for each other. As Wilson makes it up past Van Thuylen. Another mistake from Van Thuylen. As he runs a bit deep out onto the AstroTurf, and that allows Wilson through up the inside into P6. As Chris Wright trying to recover his race now, up behind Harold Katremeier. As Chris Wright tries to take the wider line into the final corner, hoping to get the run down the start-finish straight. It'll be important for him to get this move made soon. He wants to climb himself back up the order and not lose too many valuable points to his championship rivals. As Katremeier just losing the rear end slightly, as it may allow Chris Wright through up the inside, as Katremeier putting too much throttle down on the green stuff and is around. That is Chris Wright through up into P14. And Van Thuylen would like to get back past Joe Wilson. We've seen considerable pace from Van Thuylen, but a few mistakes have allowed other drivers through, and he's going to want to look to climb his way back up the order as Wilson runs very, very wide and can't cut back in because Van Thuylen gets himself alongside and gets the inside with a sweep around and up into P6. And Van Thuylen looking for the recovery drive now. As Matthew Parry, just saw yellow flags out for the driver, is back facing the right way as we've got Samuel around in the background. You see many drivers getting caught out by this final corner, just getting a little too eager on the throttle on the exit and pitching it round, almost a carbon copy of the incidents we've seen before this. As Van Thuylen catching his way up to Bernhard Bendel. Van Thuylen really pushing. You see the car squirming around underneath him, but is slowly but surely catching onto the back of Van Thuylen. Just be careful coming out of the final corner. You can see the rear trying to step away from him, but has it firmly under control. As it doesn't look like we're going to have changing conditions for the rest of this session, so going to stay wet throughout as Bernhard Bendel getting himself out onto the curbing and getting a handful of oversteer. That has allowed Van Thuylen to catch right up to the back of Bendel. Come through the back section of the circuit. We'll see how Van Thuylen is all over the back of Bendel, looking for a way past. He looks to the inside. As Van Thuylen almost alongside. Is not going to quite have the track positioning for the kink of turn 12 as they sweep back around. It's going to have a look into the final corner as Bernhard Bendel goes on to a tight line and slides off the circuit, manages to keep it on the painted runoff and back onto the circuit, but loses the position to Van Thuylen, who's now back up into P5. And Bendel now having to defend from Wilson, who's going to have a look. Oh, and there's contact between the two drivers. Oh, that is a heavy shunt. I think Wilson just not expecting Bendel to be quite so far over, but Bendel perfectly entitled to be there, and I think that was just a slight misjudgment from Wilson, and I don't think Bendel will be especially happy about that one. As Johan Leppich keeping it close to Rhys Tattersall, has not been dropped by his championship rival. Just sitting about a second behind, as he has been for the majority of this race. As both of them sliding their way around the third sector. Both taking different lines through turns 10 and 11. As Harold Katchelmatt, his yellow flags out again, is not having the best time at this circuit by the seams of things. But for sim races, every day is a school day. Everything you can learn is going to be a benefit for you in future races. So good on Katchelmatt for sticking in there. These are certainly tricky conditions to be racing in, and every little bit of experience in these conditions is going to help you. If they bring in that gap down ever so slightly, he's using every little bit of the track that he can in this battle with Rhys Tattersall. As Chris Wright has caught up onto the back of Sinski. Oh, needs to find a way through as Sasinski opens the door for him by getting himself right out onto the AstroTurf. Spins the car around, and that is Chris Wright up into P11 as Sasinski drops down the order like a stone. There's Van Thuylen. Again, closing up on another driver. This time it's Sam McCarthy, our P2 driver in the championship. And Van Thuylen so far just been picking drivers off left, right and centre. Let's see how he gets on the attack against Sam McCarthy. You can just see the visibility that these drivers get in the spray while they're chasing. This distance, not too bad. Not going to be affecting the visibility for Van Thuylen too much. As he closes in, that spray will intensify. Make it just that little bit harder to spot your braking points. You see just how much more confident Van Thuylen is to use the extent of the circuit, getting right out on that exit curbing after turn 1. And again, we see it coming through turn 3. Van Thuylen just that extra little bit of confidence to use that painted curbing. Some drivers opting to avoid it just to how slippery it is. But if you've got the confidence in the car, confidence in your driving, you can see how it's paying dividends for Van Thuylen as he's closing down that gap. Just needs to look for an opportunity to pass. As McCarthy, running a little wide, allows Van Thuylen to get himself slightly alongside. Not enough to attempt an attack into turn 10, but into turn 11. Oh, and Van Thuylen just getting a little bit greedy. He sticks a nose in where it perhaps didn't belong. Wasn't far enough alongside, didn't have the overlap required to really make that much of an opportunity. As McCarthy turns in, well, he did have hub to hub, but whether that was established before the turn-in, it's going to have to be a decision for the stewards. As that little incident has now put Sam McCarthy under threat from Joe Wilson, who is in the slipstream coming down to start-finish straight. Is he going to look to the inside into the first corner? It's just a little far back on the approach. As they come down towards turn 2, Joe Wilson all over the back of Sam McCarthy. And whereas Sam McCarthy would probably like to be looking forwards in this race, is still in a championship battle with Tattersall and Leffe for lead 2 drivers, needs to drop as few points as he can. But that incident with Van Thuylen means he finds himself down in P5, battling over P5 with Joe Wilson. As our lead pair again approach the final corner. Johan Leffe still keeping that gap around a second, has not been able to close up but to the back of Reece Tattersall, as we have seen from other drivers. That gap needs to be at its absolute minimum if you want a chance around this circuit. Not much opportunity to sort of narrow that gap down on any one straight. Need to be chipping away by it corner by corner. As Joe Wilson has now got himself right alongside Sam McCarthy. It's going to be a real opportunity here into the first corner. Is he going to be brave on the brakes? They come into the corner side by side. McCarthy giving plenty of room, getting out onto the AstroTurf where we've seen so many other drivers come a cropper. Manages to keep the car pointing in the right direction, but Joe Wilson is through and up into P5. Ooh, but very nearly losing the back of it as Sam McCarthy continues to follow Joe Wilson. Isn't being dropped by the driver in the pink car, and now is back on the attack. Sam McCarthy not going to give this one up without a fight. Sometimes in these conditions it's just a little bit easier to be the car behind than the car in front. You can watch where the driver ahead is finding the grip. And Sam McCarthy gets himself back past Joe Wilson. So this battling is causing the pair of them to continue to drop away from Van Thuylen, who is slowly but surely reeling in Busso to P3. As our lead battle continues out front, Johan Leffe again still just about a second behind Reece Tattersall. That gap staying so steady throughout this race. As we saw, Reece Tattersall with the big pace advantage in qualifying has not been able to translate that into such a pace advantage in the race. Has been unable to drop Johan Leffe. There's Svoboda. Catching Bernhard Bendel. Both of these drivers having a strong performance in this race, though. Bendel carrying a considerable amount of damage to the front of that car after the incident with Joe Wilson. Will be struggling, especially on this long start-finish straight here. As Svoboda needs to keep it close through this section of the track so that they can have the run down the start-finish straight. As long as they at least match the exit of Bendel, should be a fairly straightforward pass with the amount of air that open front bonnet will be causing to the so much drag to Bendel. And decent exit for Svoboda. A whole heap of oversteer there for Bendel. And that is Svoboda up into P7. As our battle for the lead intensifies. Johan Leffe all over the back of Reece Tattersall. That gap down to 0.2 seconds. As Leffe is on the attack. And that is the back marker of Katchelmeier ahead of them. But they're going to have to clear some blue flag traffic, and Reece Tattersall is just going to be hoping that Katchelmeier has got at least one eye on his mirrors, as he is getting very close to being involved in this battle for the lead. As Katchelmeier gets himself well out of the way, very nearly getting involved with Leffe, but managed to just get himself out of the way, and the two of them continue unimpeded to start another lap. It should be a good exit here for Leffe, as Tattersall gets a snap of oversteer coming through the final corner. This is the best attempt or best chance that Leffe has had all race, as he's caught right in the slipstream. Is going to look to the inside. Tattersall moves over to defend it. Leffe opens the corner up just that slight bit more for himself. Gonna have a run down into turn 2. Again, Tattersall goes defensive to the inside. There's just avoiding contact between the two of them. This is close but fair racing here between Tattersall and Leffe. Two drivers we've seen competing at the very top of this Porsche Cup series. As we have yellow flags out again for our championship leader Chris Wright. Doesn't seem to have lost any position through that. As yellow flags out again for Van Thuylen, who is dropping back towards Sam McCarthy. We're going to keep with this battle for the lead in this race, as Johan Leffe chases down Reece Tattersall with just over 7 minutes remaining. We come down to start finish straight again. Leffe not as close as he was the last lap round, not going to have that opportunity to look for an overtake into the first corner. He's just going to have to settle in behind. Try and intimidate Tattersall into taking a suboptimal line. Not close enough to do so at the moment, but we have seen how Leffe can be on the offensive. He's got good car control, he's able to keep it in close behind Tattersall without incident. Just needs to keep applying that pressure and hope for a mistake from his competitor. As Leffe sniffing all over the back of the car of Tattersall. As Leffe driving the smoothest of lines. They come round onto the third sector. Is supremely close now. Just needs to get a good exit from the final corner. Might even have an opportunity to put Tattersall under pressure here as they come down towards the final corner. Leffe getting the car sideways through turn 13. Hooks it up for the final corner. Is good on the exit, and again is tucked right into the slipstream of Tattersall. Is just going to keep it tucked in there as long as he can. Is he going to move out at the last possible opportunity? Stays tucked in. He's going to hope to get the better run around the first corner. Again, you can see just how Leffe is using all of the circuit. He's driving seemingly the faster lines through these corners, but Tattersall doing everything he needs to in terms of defence, not being spooked off of his line. Keeping it calm, keeping it tidy, importantly. We've seen so many drivers just getting caught up, trying to push too hard and pushing themselves into a spin. Tattersall keeping it within the limits, not using bits of the circuit that he's not confident with. You can see Leffe seemingly a bit more confident using the curbs, using the AstroTurf, but it doesn't matter at the moment. Tattersall is holding enough pace to keep it ahead. Leffe unable to find a way through. And it is impressive that Tattersall in these conditions is able to just soak up all of this pressure. Has yet to put a foot wrong all race. And with just over 3.5 minutes remaining in this race, it's gonna take something special from Leffe to try and take this position away from Tattersall. As Leffe goes very deep around the final corner, takes the pressure off of Tattersall on this run down towards the first corner. There's Leffe pushing considerably now. You can see the rear of that car just stepping away from him on the exit of some of these corners. Needs to be careful not to pitch himself into a spin, although this pair has got a considerable lead over Busso. So potentially not so much to lose on the offensive here. Can afford to be a little bit more aggressive, to take a few more risks in the offence. Again, we've got yellow flags out for Chris Wright, who's going to drop back down behind Steve Goosens. Got himself back underway, but this race not going the way of Chris Wright, who is some 7 positions behind his championship rival of Sam McCarthy, as Johan Leffe getting himself very sideways. Coming through turn 11. And that has now dropped him 1.5 seconds behind the lead up, Rhys Tattersall. So, barring any major incidents, looking like Reese Tattersall has got this race under control. As we've got a battle brewing over P8 as Bernhard Bendel with that damaged front end is coming under pressure from Matthew Parry. They run down the start-finish straight. You can just see how that broken bonnet is affecting the drag. The car of Bendel as Parry pulls alongside. Thinks better of it though, stays in behind. As Bendel runs slightly deep, and this putting Bendel under pressure from Parry. Parry with a solid exit. It's looking like this will be the final, or maybe the final lap of this race. As our leader, some 30 seconds away from the start finish line. Be interesting to see whether they decide to back off to shorten this race one lap, but I don't think they're going to have much scope to do so with Leffe tucked in behind. As Reese Tattersall comes down towards the start finish line, will this be the end of the race? I don't think so actually. I think there may be one more lap left in it. As Reese Tattersall crosses the line, and yep, we are going to have one more lap of racing as Bendel and Parry are now on the back of Svoboda. As that Wilson just up ahead as well. So these four cars not separated by much. And up in front of them it is Van Thailand, who is looking to snatch the final podium position off of Busso. Has been clawing his way up the order since an early incident. Van Thailand showing what a racer he is, able to push his way through the field. Van Thailand getting very sideways, and that isn't going to help his attack on Busso. Again going very sideways, but managing to carry the speed, a little bit of contact with the back of Busso there. Eases off, doesn't push the car around. As Reese Tattersall comes to cross the line, take the checkered flag and to take the win here in Valencia. Taking the maximum points into the championship, followed up behind by Johan Leffe. As we're going to see Busso and Van Thailand continuing to battle it out. A little bit of contact there, but it is Busso who finishes ahead of Van Thailand, takes the final podium position. Van Thailand settling for P4 in this race. Then Sam McCarthy bringing home a P5. That will help his championship out there in the lead. And B6 is Joe Wilson. P7 Bernhard Bendel. P8 will be Matthew Parry, and P9 Wojtek Svoboda. Marco Lorenzen crosses the line in P10. And then Steve Goosens in the Amazing Goose police car, rounding the final corner to bring himself home in P11. P12 will be Chris Wright, who I suspect will lose the championship lead after this round. Not the finish Wright will have been looking for. And then we have got a final lap battle for P13 as Florent Damour chasing down Mark Saniel. Daniel needs to be careful here on the throttle. Doesn't want to make the same mistake they made earlier in the race, but nice and controlled over the line. Takes P13 ahead of Florent Demore in P14. Well, thank you very much for watching, everyone. If you have enjoyed this race, please do consider signing up at pitskill.io. My referral link can be found down in the description below. And if you've been enjoying these broadcasts, please do consider liking and subscribing. And until next week, when the pitskill.io Porsche Cup sponsored by SimQuips goes to Silverstone, I have been your host, Roy Weller. Thank you very much for watching and good night.